Welcome back to Real Opinions. I think the last one we reviewed was the Cloverfield Paradox, which was the Cloverfield film that went straight out to Netflix, and now I'm covering Mute, the Duncan Jones film that's just come out this Friday, and it's very much the same. It's not as bad by any stretch, but it's very much in the same category of it feels like a film that could only go out on Netflix because Netflix is becoming this, I want to find a less mean way to say it, but dumping ground for films that just aren't worth getting put into the cinema. Mute, it's telling the story of a mute in futuristic Berlin who falls in love with a waitress at the bar that he works, and one day she disappears, kind of classic noir style, and he goes trying to find her, which leads him into the criminal underworld. My main takeaway from this film is that it offers me nothing. And again, a lot of the points that I'm trying to get through sound very negative, but it's more just that I'm very apathetic to this film. And when I say it just offered me nothing, I meant that I will forget this film within a week or so because there is nothing to think about after you've watched it. I didn't feel that the story necessitated him being a mute. I didn't feel like it necessitated the setting of the futuristic Berlin. I don't think it really said anything about anything, to be honest. It was just a very standard noir set in a different setting with a different style of protagonist, and many could argue, but a lot of decent changes to a genre are just by adding something different, and I understand that, but for instance, Blade Runner, while I don't particularly love it, it adds something to noir by putting in a futuristic setting, but it is in a futuristic setting because it is about the replicants. Like, there is a reason for it being in a futuristic setting. You can't do that story without that setting. Mute, it could have been set in the present day, it could have been set 20, 30 years ago, really. Like, there's really nothing stopping it except for, like, a couple of background details that really could be changed. There's nothing that necessitates it being in that futuristic setting. To me, it just proves that it's just a backdrop that doesn't add anything to the story of the film, it doesn't add anything to the themes of the film. Like I said, the main character's muteness, it doesn't actually affect anything. Like, the very beginning of the film and the very end of the film replicate each other very closely and is very much like pointing at the themes of rebirth and all of that, but that doesn't have any impact on the actual story, it doesn't have any impact on the character. I think that the best aspect that they had to this film was the relationships and the little human moments that characters sometimes have, but it was never enough to make me actually care about any of them. The majority of the jokes, I think, fall kind of flat, but there are odd ones where I think that they were actually pretty clever, and in a better film I would have really enjoyed them. And also, this is another case of one of those films where the ending happened 20 minutes before it actually ends. Like, the emotional conclusion of the film was about 20 minutes prior to when it actually ended, and it just kept going for that final stretch. There's really kind of two villains to this film, and they interact more than the protagonist interacts with them. And they have a very weird dynamic, which was very much flitting between, like, make you flip from one side to the other of liking. Many people could maybe argue that that's not the case, but I just felt like it was weird circumstance of the film didn't know whether or not it wanted you to like the villains or to hate the villains. Well, to be fair, both of them actually, by the end, it reveals, like, all the horrible stuff that they do, but they're still presented in a weird way where it kind of feels like it's saying that you should like them anyway. It was very uncomfortable villains, and I didn't feel like uncomfortable was what they were going for. Yeah, Mute, it's just fine. It's overlong, doesn't say much, and isn't particularly anything. Great, thank you very much for listening, and there's more reviews on the rest of the channel.